Hey, it's Joy. Welcome back to the Crafter Party Retreat. I have some fun projects that are looking at Thermoweb products. Some of them are from Maker Forte and others are from Thermoweb specifically. I am going to start out with the Detailed Dots by Maker Forte. So as you know that this is an adhesive that's got dots on it, so it's not a full coverage adhesive. And this is a 4 1/4 by 8 1/2 sheet. So I am putting down my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 A2 panel, and then I'm cutting off the excess. And that's just so that I can work with the area that I need. You're going to notice on my work surface, I put down a piece of cardstock, and that's just to try to contain the mess because this is going to be a glittery mess like a glitter factory exploded. So right now I'm using my bone folder from Maker Forte, and I am burnishing these detailed dots onto the white cardstock. And I'm using not only the beveled edge, but the flat edge, trying to get as good of an adhesion as possible. Now I saved this release sheet for later. Just so you know, don't toss it away when you go to use it. This is a process. Some of it's going to work. In the end, you're going to find out that even the ones that look distressed and not so great end up making some really great cards. So I am starting out with the red glitter from our kit. And if any of you know how to open these jars without spilling them, let me know, because I end up wearing some all the time. I leave it out so you don't have that little piece of enjoyment to watch, but I am basically putting almost this entire jar of glitter down, and I am spreading it with my fingers. A little tip is you might not want to do that because you could get splinters. Here I got smarter. I'm using that release sheet, and I am using the bone folder. I'm using the tapered end and the flat end, and I find that the tapered end I get the most pressure with. And I am really working this cardstock because I know that I have particles that don't necessarily want to stick unless there's something that's got a full adhesion. So the more you burnish, the better the results that you're going to get. So keep that in mind as you make these glitter sheets if you ever attempt to do it. I do recommend them. It brings out a really cool project in the end. But be prepared to have a glitter bomb go off in your craft room. So right now we're still looking like it's pretty clean, and I'm trying to pick it up with my fingernails. You see I'm, here I am. I have such mixed emotions about glitter. I hope you're laughing with me at this point. So I am shaking this off. I'm tapping it off to get as much of the excess off, and then I decide I didn't get enough coverage, so I go straight back in with the glitter that's on that cardstock. That's a scratch piece, and I'm trying to burnish it in with my fingers, and I think I come in with a bone folder because I still didn't like it. And what you're going to find out is what you see is what you get with the detailed dots. So here I am funneling this back into the jar. This is probably the most satisfactory moment of my day. I am trying this again with another full bottle of red glitter. I repeat the process. I'm using the release paper, and I am going down with this bone folder with my fingertips. I mean, I might be even saying a little bit of a prayer that I get better coverage. I don't know. So if you have a secret glitter fairy or glitter god to praise, let me know, because I'm playing along. I'm getting glittery, and I love this red. It's my favorite cranberry color for Christmas. So yeah, there's nothing better than a shiny cranberry in my opinion. And you're going to see that I use this glitter off and on throughout my cards. But we are going to be coming to an end shortly. And I am personally leaving in this entire process so that you can laugh at my expense. That's all I can say. Look at this. Look at this mess. And I have a lot of loose glitter there. Again, detailed dots are dots. You don't have a full sheet of glue or whatever it is that makes it stick, the two-sided glue. So you're going to get a texture. And I think in my mind when I was starting this, I was thinking that I was going to get full coverage, and that's just not going to happen with the nature of detailed dots. Here I am using a full sheet of adhesive. You can find this in the Thermoweb store. I will make sure if it's available by Baker Forte as well. But this is full-on adhesion. And I dumped this entire bottle of gold glitter. This is a repetitive process, but we're going to have a much better coverage. Did you see that nasty blister that's on my finger? I was doing wax seals and I grabbed my spoon the other day and I burnt that sucker. And yeah, so I'm sorry that you have to look at that on my index finger, but it is what it is. I am using the bone folder, both again up at an angle so that I get the most pressure, and then I flatten it out. I do the exact same thing. So I'm just telling you, I am taking this for the team. I am not a glitter queen. I try to stay away from it as much as possible unless it's very, very controlled. And this is not controlled. But I love you guys. I love Maker Forte. I love the Crafter Party retreats. So I'm taking it for the team today. I am probably overkilling this with the burnishing because I had pretty good coverage if I had just paid attention. But as always, you're always striving for perfection. You want the best coverage, and in my head, I want to create a non-shed glitter cardstock, which after you dust it off enough, that'll happen, but I don't think that I ever got to that stage. But look how stunning this page is. Is that not the best? I would think die cutting a word die, that would be magnificent on a card. Now we're going to use some tear tape, and I'm going to use, I want to say, is that, it looks like it might be a half inch. And so I am doing that diagonally across my cardstock. And I leave this whole process in so you see it. So the the tape is going to be wider than the white space that I am leaving. At least that's my attempt. I tried to do this as uniform as possible throughout the entire panel. But it's just another way to add glitter or anything shiny like foil or anything like that. But we're going to show you the foil later on. That's a spoiler alert. We've got foil coming. But I wanted to start with the glitter just to get it over with so that I could stop and I could clean my craft room before we moved on to the foil. Because as you know, with foil, you have to have a dust-free environment. Otherwise, the foil will stick to that. So I am still working this tape. And in hindsight, I should have done this on my glass mat instead of the scrap cardstock as far as the taping goes, because now I have to worry about ripping it up off of the brown cardstock. It ends up not being a problem. It's just another one of those things. In hindsight, hindsight's 2020, and you learn what you should do next time. I always leave in my bonehead decisions so that you guys can learn from them and you don't do them. Here I am taking my Tim Holtz scissors. I do recommend these scissors to cut anything that has adhesive because they're Teflon and non-stick. Now I will say, eventually, you can only cut so much adhesive and then you kind of get the scissors gummed up. But it's not as bad as using like a steel or aluminum blade. So I'm just continuing to cut these. I find that the long shears help the most because you get a straight edge. But really at the end it doesn't matter because I'm going to end up cutting these panels down, but that's further on down the line. So I am now burnishing those. The key is always burnishing so that your adhesive stays and your glitter stays. And I'm using the bone folder just like you've seen me do. And then I'm using my crafter's wand and I am peeling up every other stripe. Now I think for interest purpose, I peeled up 2 in a row in one area. And that's because like if I'm going for a candy cane effect, sometimes candy canes have like 2 stripes next to each other and then you've got the gaps. So I'm just trying to give my card some interest, but if you don't like it, you absolutely don't have to do it. So now every other stripe is exposed, meaning the adhesive is exposed, and I am putting down this red glitter. And I come back in and I start burnishing it. Here I got a little bit smarter and I used some copy paper, and that's just because it's a bigger piece, so I'm not pushing the glitter all around and I'm making less of a mess. So that is my tip for you when you're playing with glitter, is use as big a pieces of paper as possible. Don't try to mess around with those little release pages that came from our adhesive because it's not big enough to contain your mess. I am really working this the same as I did before. And you're going to see that it kind of sticks to my copy paper. I don't really care about that. That's going to be, my scratch paper in the future. So when you see me shaking this off, you're going to see very defined lines. And you have to remember, I left the backing on every other stripe. So that's where you see me pushing it. So I want to make sure that that is true. And it is. I have a few stripes that I wanted a little bit more coverage on. So I am putting more glitter on it. And I'm burnishing that down. And here I didn't use the copy paper. But I think it's because I knew that I had a pretty contained area that I was working with. But do as I say, not as I do. Cover it with the copy paper and you'll be a much happier crafter. So here's going to come the reveal. I did funnel this off into the jar off camera. And now I'm removing those stripes that have not been exposed yet. And we're going to do something else. Do you think it maybe needs more glitter? I think it probably does, right? So there I was touching it to make sure I actually had removed it. I don't know where my mind was when I was crafting. It seemed like I was all over the place. My husband had been texting me. My dogs were barking. I mean, I'm crazy. I craft by the seat of my pants. I never really have a huge plan. So your surprise is what I am when I get my results. And I just wanted you to know that. When I plan for crafting, I write down my calendar, like when things are due or what I kind of want to do. I don't sketch anything out. I don't even think about what 100% I'm going to do. I mean, it might be going on in the back of my brain, but there's nothing written down, nothing planned. Here I am bringing in the copy paper. So I got smarter. I'm just curious, are you the planner? Are you the one that does card sketches and knows exactly what stamps they're going to use? I have a friend who stamps one part of her cards and then she cleans up for the night and then the next day she does another thing. Like, she knows exactly what she's going to do with every hour of her day. And that blows my mind. I can't do that. So here I am. I'm crafting with you, and we're having a blast. I did get a little piece of adhesive on the back. It doesn't make a difference. Now, did you see that candy cane stripe? We are now moving into foiling, and you're going to see that I have a tub with just soap in it. I leave that off to the side, like under my desk, but I wanted you to be aware. Those are the tools that I use to spread the Deco foil gels. So the Blanco is white, so it dries white. And you have to set it with a heat like a laminator or a mink machine. The transfer gel is clear when it dries, and that's got to be set with a laminator. Now, if you do the duo gel, once it's dry, you can either put it through a die cutting machine with the pressure, or you can do a laminator. I do not break out the die machine today. We're sticking with the laminator. I am using this little snowfall stencil that was in our kit, and I am putting the transfer gel. So this is going to dry transparent when it's done. I put it down with a spatula, and now I am using a stencil pal just to get a lighter coat, because I figure the lighter the coat, the less time it's going to take to dry. Now, my glass board is also magnetic, so those white things that you're seeing are magnets that are holding down my stencils and my cardstock, if you are curious. Here is the reveal. I didn't show it to you, sorry. Now we're moving into this snowflake sunburst type thing, and this is where I am bringing in the Blanco. So I put my stencil down into the water, I put my spatulas down, and I'm starting off with something new now. I'm using now the Nuvo spatula, and I am spreading this down. It kind of reminds me like frosting a cake. Now, I'm going to say lighter is better, and where that snowflake is, because this is not glued down like with pixie spray or anything like that, that stencil can lift up and you can have stuff seep. So I would say do not rub over it as many times as I did. It worked out in the end in my card design, but sometimes you just have to leave stuff alone. In my mind right now, I am trying to get a even coverage, and I'm also trying to save some of my gel. Like, I'm going to scrape it off of my spatula and put it back into the jar. We really didn't use that much, so I don't know that it was worth all that work. But I am cleaning that off with a baby wipe. The key is to get all of this paste or gel off of your utensils or your stencils so that it isn't permanently glued to it. I got some on my magnets. I'm even cleaning those off. So the key is stay clean and soak your stuff. Do you ask me how I know? I've got a lot of stencils that have a lot of dried paste and gels to them, and they're not really usable. Here's the reveal. You can see the snowflake did get some running to it, but that Blanco gel is gorgeous. Gorgeous. Here I'm using the buildings, and I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do, and in my mind, I decided to do the solid buildings first, and I am putting down the transfer gel. This is not the Blanco. And in my thought process was, once we get this foiled, you can use alcohol markers on it. So I was going to use the stencil that had the windows, and I was going to take a black marker, a black alcohol marker, and color those in. I did not like the finish that I got on this, so I ultimately did not make this into a card, but I am telling you what my intention is. So Pay attention to how you spread it and get an even coat, and then you would be able to color on foil just the same as if you have a foiled piece. You can use alcohol inks like the Ranger Tim Holtz alcohol inks. You can do that on top of them as well. It comes out with stunning results. So here's the reveal. Now we're going to try the ephemera. I knew that these were printed with toner. I was hoping that colored toner, meaning not black, would not stick to the foil. Spoiler alert, it does. But I left this in so that you know, so that you don't waste your supplies and try to do something different. I chose a gold to go over this because I thought it paired very nicely with the antique color of the dictionary sentiments. I am putting this through my laminator, and I do put my hand over my laminator often. My laminator's probably on its last legs. I have a mink that's coming, so I put pressure on it, just hoping that it'll foil. You're going to see that some of the words foiled nicely, but we've got a lot of outlines. If that is a look that you like, absolutely use it. I do show you where I salvaged one of them. Now we're going to try some foiling over embossing powder. And so when you emboss, you've got to treat that with an anti-static tool. You need to remember that your foil will stick to dusty things. So keep that in mind. So I treated it with the anti-static tool, and I am using my embossing glue ink, and I'm applying good pressure with my ink smooshing tool. I'm adding clear embossing powder. Now if you have thick embossing powder, you'll have better results, but I do not own any. That's a surprise. Shocker. So once I get a good coverage with this, I come in with my heat tool and I set it. And I wait until it cools off to remove the dust. And the way that I remove the dust is I use my microfiber cloth from Maker Forte, and I wipe off the powder. Again, make sure that it's cool, because if that powder that's melted is still hot, you're just going to smear it. And then I use my little dusty tool, that puffy brush, to remove the rest. Again, dust is not your friend when you're using toner or transfer type foils. So I am using that piece of foil that I have left. It doesn't cover one of these sentiments. I don't care. This is just an experiment that I wanted you to see. So I put this through the laminator, and I do not put pressure on it so that I don't make the embossing powder, when it melts, I don't want it to like bloom or explode. And I just let the laminator do what it's going to do. So do not put extra pressure. The heat from the laminator, so you need to make sure that your laminator is nice and hot, like it's been running like a half hour, so that it reheats that embossing powder. And this reveal is kind of cool when we finally get to it. You're going to see some of that embossing powder went onto my copy paper. We knew that that was going to happen. But here you go. So two of the sentiments looked okay. The one at the top, I think it melted too much and I had some blooming. For some reason, I'm calling this the cabin. I don't know if it's a cabin or if it's a front door scene. I am attempting to do the same thing with this stamp. And so I am embossing that, and then I'm applying the clear embossing powder to it. And I didn't have the greatest results. I have to be honest with you, I'm very disappointed. I thought this thing was going to be killer in foil. So give it a try. Get a really good coating with your embossing. Put some thick powder on it, and, cross your fingers, send it good vibes, say a prayer to the embossing gods, to the foiling gods, and see what you get. That's all I can say. And again, I am melting this very well. I wipe it off with my microfiber cloth once the embossing is cool, and I use that little brush to remove all of the dust off of that, or the powder. I then apply, what color did I use? I think I used a silver foil, because I thought it would look awesome on a black cardstock. Yep, there it is. And I put that through the laminator. And here you go. Here's the reveal. It just did not work for me. But wouldn't it be cool if we could get it too? Now I'm coming back in with the transfer gel panels. I'm using the snow, and I'm using the Snowy Day foil from Maker Forte, and I am applying that to the, like, over the snow. I only did that snow maybe to the top third, or a little bit, not quite half, so that we would have the illusion of snow. And I am putting that through my laminator. And look at this reveal. Isn't that cool? So here we didn't have to use the Blanco because we're using a white foil. Now this panel with the burst on it, I did use the Blanco because I'm using it on black cardstock. And I'm using this silver holographic foil. I'll make sure I get the right name of that in the description boxes for you guys. But look at this reveal. Isn't this stunning? And even that snowflake that kind of bloomed out, who cares? It looks beautiful. It looks like a medallion. I love this. So here are some looks at the panels that we've got so far. I'm still fidgeting with that piece that's on the back of that. Who cares? We'll fix it in the end. And I am going to trim this down. Here is the gold. Again, it's really pretty. I was able to get most of the excess off. And now look at this one. It kind of has a snakeskin look. It's got a distressed look, and I like it. The Season's Greeting, the one that I embossed, I was able to save. And then the one that said Carol, I was able to trim that down and get a really nice sentiment out of that. So, all of my trials and errors weren't done in vain. We did get some good results. I'm coming in with the building scene, and I'm using what's left of the Snowy Day sheet, and I'm putting that through the laminator. I forgot to flip my screen, so yeah, it's backwards. There it is. By the magic of editing, we've now got it going correct. I just laugh at myself. So here you go. And we didn't get a really good foil on that. And I think that's because every time I used that stencil pal, I was removing some of the adhesive. So I'm going in with what's left of another part of the Snowy Day, and I attempt to run it through the machine again. And I just don't like this panel. If you like a distressed panel, by all means do it. You could still use the alcohol markers and do this. Now this is one where I used 1/2-inch tape, and I used a red foil. I think this is a Gina K Thermoweb one. I think we carry this in the store at Maker Forte. And I put it on black cardstock. So now I'm removing the other tape, just like we did before with the glitter. We're now doing it with the foil. This is my favorite way to foil, to be honest with you. I even like it better than doing like the Glimmer hot foil system. And this is just kind of a no-brainer technique to me. I'm using this awesome holographic foil from Maker Forte, and again, I'll have all of the names listed in the description boxes below for you guys. I am burnishing it the same as I always do with the bone folder, just so that I get a good adhesion, and it works like a charm. I mean, just like the red did. Now, when I reveal this, when I finally get there, I do have some foiled areas that are missing or I didn't burnish it well. And again, if you like the distressed look, you could absolutely leave it, but I don't. And I'm going to show you how to fix that as soon as I decide to do this reveal. So you see some of those areas that skipped. I am just going over with, here I'm showing it to you. I'm taking the areas of the foil that I did not stick down on adhesive. And when I do that all those marks are covered up. And I repeat that 3 more times in all the areas where the white stripes or the silver stripes are, so that we have a uniform coverage. Again, if you like the distressed look of it, this is not a necessary step. For me, it is. I strive for perfection, even though I screw up a lot. I always leave my screw ups in my videos so that you can learn from them. I always say that there is something to learn from everybody. And by the magic of editing, a lot of times we do not see the mistakes that people make. And that's not fair to the new card maker. They need to know that we make mistakes the same as everybody else. Here I am using one of the pre-printed sentiments. They're inside sentiments. This is the Twinkle Twinkle. And I am trying to find one that would be good for a Christmas card. And I settle on the Be Filled with Wonder. And I just use that same gold cardstock. I do a strip and I run that through the laminator. And on the reveal, this is a perfect foil. Absolutely stunning. I don't use this on a card today, but I will keep it in my stash for later on. Now we're coming back to this doorway, the snowy doorway stamp. I love this stamp. It's gorgeous. So I'm using the kaleidoscope that was included in our kit, and I am just using a brush, and I am brushing that onto navy blue cardstock. This was from my stash. I'm not even sure who carries it. It doesn't really matter. We're here for the techniques. So as I brush this on, you can see where the trees and the snow and the wreath are starting to take place. I love how the brick looks. This is just stunning. I want to do this in every color. I don't know, this might be my Christmas card for the year. I haven't decided. I have quite a few to make. I think I say that every time I make a new card, but I'm getting down to the point that I really have to narrow down what design I'm going to do for the year. Here I'm making my card base out of the same navy blue cardstock, so we're going to have a tone-on-tone look. And from there, I decide that I want to back this with the snowy sky from the paper pack in our kit. And I cut that down to size. I think I cut this panel down to 3 3/4 by 5. See, I've got some adhesive on my trimmer. I'm just removing that. So that I can cut it down without making a mess. I would die at this point if I got adhesive tape all over my panel, because I'd have to start over. There's no fixing that. So be sure that you've got a clean blade. I think that probably doesn't affect too many people, but it does affect me. So there we are. Yep, I was right. 3 3/4 by 5. Those blue lines that you see on my trimmer, that's what I like my focal panels to be on my cards. So I have those in blue so that I don't have to try to see what line I'm lining it up to. I also do that on most of my scoreboards, like where the A2 lines would be. That way I don't have to think twice about it. Like the landscape card has one color and then the portrait has another. So those are just little tips and tricks. Here I am taking that snowflake paper and I back that onto the card base. I am popping up the focal panel onto double-sided adhesive just because I like dimension on my cards. I decided that this did not need a sentiment on the front. I think that you can always put your sentiment on the inside if you don't want to take away from your scenes. So I stamped the Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and then I just took a strip of that same paper and I put it on the inside. I think that that's kind of a fun way to decorate the inside of your card without having to go over the top and stamp and ink and do all of those things. Look at the shine on this. God, I love this. I love this card. Love it. I'd love to know what you think of it. Now I am bringing in my favorite wreath, and I am stamping this in Everglade. And I'm using my ink smudging tool to get a really good impression. It isn't that beautiful. Now off camera, I ran it through my scan and cut, so that will cut out the outline, but it did not cut the inside. I've not figured out how to do that yet. So I poked a hole in it and I used the scissors and I fuzzy cut it, and I don't do good with fuzzy cutting, and I think that shows. So by using this Cotswold green ink, I'm able to disguise some of those jagged edges, and it also brings some dimension into my wreath. It also makes it look a little bit more vintage, because remember that distressed detailed dot panel that we made with the red glitter? Yep, we're going to use that. Who would have thought that I would have used it? Now, I did not like the distressing being on the left side for some reason, so I tore it apart. Because I'm using wet glue, I have that little bit of time to remove it, and now I'm putting it so it's on the right side, and I'm just gluing that flat. Now, I will tell you that most tapes do not like to stick to glitter. So a lot of times I will either use wet glue, which again, it still has a lot of play time, but if you use foam tape will grab it and it doesn't move. So I do pop this up with foam tape from my stash, and look how cool this is. Now I'm using one of the vintage dictionary sentiments. It says festive, and now I'm using my Barely Art glue. You could use the glue that came in your kit. My craft room is a bombshell between glitter and all the stuff everywhere from the kits. I have been creating like a mad woman for the last 2 weeks, and I'm just glad that I can walk in my room. Normally I keep a very neat room, but for the last 2 weeks it has not been. So we're going to use the Barely Art glue because that's what I could put my hands on. And what I'm doing that is I am dotting that onto all the areas where there are berries, because who wants a green berry for Christmas? I mean, I guess you could if it was your favorite color. It's not my favorite. Although green is my favorite color, it's just not my favorite color for berries. So once I get done dotting this glue on, you guessed it, we're bringing out the glitter. I am a glutton for punishment in this video, but I love the results, and I love all the shimmers and shines and the textures. So even though I am full of glitter all over me, I am so glad that I've got it, because the end result is beautiful. So I am lightly sprinkling this so that I don't have a bomb go off. And I'm just strategically placing that where the berries are. And I tap that off and I get pretty good coverage. Now I did miss a couple of the berries. And I don't see that until after I shake the glitter off. So then I go back in and I put in a little bit more, and I think I go heavier. I didn't have to do that. I just didn't want to miss the spots. So I think this turned out really super cool. I'm glad that I kept this detail dot background because that was not speaking to me in the beginning. In fact, I wanted to throw it away. So I always say when I'm crafting, you should just keep going. And here is an example. Just keep going. You never know what you're going to get. This is probably my favorite card, maybe my second favorite card. Now we're moving on to yet another card. And this is the Snowflake Burst. I put double-sided adhesive on there, and I'm taking twine so it sticks, and I am wrapping that around like 3 or 4 times in a crisscross so that it crosses around that medallion area or snowflake area. Now, I want to feed a snowflake charm from our kit onto it. So once I get it to where I want, I put the backing on so that I have a surface that I can work on so that it's not sticking to my glass board. And then I go ahead and thread the snowflake on. And once I have that on, I remove the backing and I tape down the string. That way you're not having to worry about taping and then putting adhesive on and all that stuff. So remember that gold season's greeting that we did with the embossing and the foil? I cut that down into a rectangle and I am putting that over the medallion because I wasn't thrilled with the bloom that I got from the transfer gel. But I just think that this card is gorgeous. I love the shimmers, the shines, the holographic colors. I mean, it just picks up every color in the room, whatever you're wearing, whatever. I mean, oh, love it. Love it, love it. I did put my wet glue down just in case I needed some wiggle room because that double-sided adhesive is so strong. If you put it down without glue, you've got no wiggle room. So this gives you the slip. So that's my card. I'm loving it. Now we're going to come in to my cats. I have 5 cats at my house. I should be admitted to an insane asylum. My 5th cat actually broke into my house during a thunderstorm. He was a feral cat, and he decided to live under my couch. And he had accidents under my couch. I was very lucky. I was able to bleach it right away, and not the couch, the floor, and was able to save that. So I had said, hey, if he doesn't learn how to use a litter box, he's going. Well, he had never climbed up on me, never let me pet him. So like 2 weeks later, I said, if this cat doesn't let me touch him, I'm going to get a critter getter to come get him. And don't you know, the next day I woke up and he was on my lap. So there it is. I am coloring this to be a black cat. And so what I'm doing is I'm using the C9 and I did my darkest shadows. So under the hat and where the legs come together. And then I used the C7. And the C7 just draws out that shadow and starts to move into the mid-tone. From there, I am using the C5, and that is the main color that you're going to see in the cat to make this black cat. If you color an object completely black, you won't see that it has paws or legs or a face or anything else. So you've got to use different shades of gray to obtain that. So finally, my last color I come in with is the C3. So I leave his face a little bit brighter and I leave his belly and his legs a little bit brighter just so that there's some definition and you can see it. I do go back in with a C7 and I add some shading right where the legs come together so that there's more definition. Now I have 2 black cats, so I'm choosing another black cat. The one at the top is much smaller. So that is the new jailbird that broke into my house. His name is Hunter. And he's adorable. And I am coloring him exactly the same way as I did the first cat. during Inktober, I had several requests for Copic coloring. I typically do not do Copic coloring during retreats because I feel like it takes up a lot of time and it becomes redundant. But because it was asked for and people had questions and wanted to know what colors I used and wanted to see the techniques, I am leaving this in for my cards. Now for my butterscotch cat. I am using an E95, which is the lightest color, believe it or not. Which normally most colors do the lightest color and then they go in like lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest. I usually go darkest to lightest. So here I am coming in with an E19. And that is my darkest color. And I am, again, the same shadows that we did on the other cats. I am following. So where the legs come together, where the bum is, where the round part of the face and under the cap. Those are always the darkest. And then I come in with an I think that's an E15. And I start coloring that in. And you're going to be shocked with some of my color choices here in a minute because of that. So I'm just trying to build in these shadows and give the body. Now I'm coming in with the E99. And in theory, if you know the Copic numbering, the E99 should be the darkest earth tone. But clearly it's not. The E19 is actually darker than the E99. So the E19 probably has a little bit more red in it. And then from there, I am coming in with the I think it's a 95 and coloring it. I am leaving a little white patch there because that's what my cat is. So that's what we're doing with this one. Now this guy here is, he's a tortoiseshell. He's adorable. I did not color him with all the different flecks and colors. To be honest with you, I probably couldn't remember his markings if I wanted. So I am going in with the E49 and I'm again doing all of my shadows. I'm making sure to leave a highlight on its tail. Now he's kind of looking off to the right a little bit. So he's got more of a, off to the left. So he's got more of a shadow on that left side compared to the right side. I don't normally worry too much about light source. If you're wanting to know more about light source, I can do a video of that on my channel. Look me up at joywilsoninc.com. All of my socials are listed there. And leave me a comment and let me know that you want to know about light source and we can go into it. But typically, I just kind of shade where like different parts of the animal or the would overlap and whatnot. So it's almost as if the light is hitting straight on like in the center. So that's kind of what I did. So I used the E47, the 44, and I think a 43. Now my other cat is black and white. So this cat's got some spots on it. So I'm just using a C3 and then a C1. I colored the hats off screen for time's sake because this is starting to run long, and if we had gone into all of those colors, it would have been forever. But for the greens, I used YG03, 17, and 67. For the reds, I used R24, 46, 29, and 59. I stamped the Meowie Christmas and Happy New Year sentiment onto a small rectangle, and here I'm just trying to figure out my placement. Not gluing anything down. In fact, I think I might actually have glued them a little bit different when it came down to it, but I just wanted to see the way they were going to fit and if they were going to be cute on the card. So that's all I'm doing. I kind of fidget with my designs when I get to the placement of stuff just so that they make sense. So I feel like if you overlap them and you make some taller, some shorter, you keep the eye moving and you add interest in your design. So I opt to glue down some of the cats, like the first one. I glue down flat. And then after that, I pop the center one up with some foam tape. And I do that because I like dimension. I want it to feel like a scene, like we've got a pile of cats, because that's what I've got. I've got a pile of cats at my house. And if you ever want to adopt one, you can probably have one. I'm kidding. They're not for adoption. I love them all. They get my attention all day long. I just say those things because I think I need my head checked. Having these many animals in my house, but I happen to love animals probably as much as I love people, maybe more. So, here I am popping up the next cat, and I am taking my time. So, I am curious, do you like foam tape? Do you like dimension? Do you use card stock and use several layers to make them thicker like chipboard? Or do you just cheat like I do and use foam tape? I know that foam tape maybe isn't the best for the environment, but I figure we're probably not making that huge of a footprint with foam tape. But I could be wrong. Let me know if you feel differently. So there I am. I'm putting my big Garfield cat over there, and she is glued straight down, no foam tape. Now my next two cats are popped up on foam tape because they're going to be front and center on my cards, and those happen to be my two black cats. I love my little black cats. My big one has the most beautiful green eyes, and that's the way I colored him, was with a green eye. Now my little one, he's got copper colored eyes, and did you know that copper eyes are actually very rare for cats? I had no idea until I Googled it. I'm not even sure why I Googled it, other than my husband said, "Ooh, those are cool." So, but this other little cat didn't have eyes that were open for me to color copper. So, you didn't have to sit through that either. But isn't this coming together absolutely darling? Whether you like cats, or you like dogs, or you don't like them at all, I don't see how you can not like these little critters. Critters always make me happy at Christmas time. So people ask me if I'm team dog or team cat. I am actually team dog, team cat, and team bird. If you follow me on my socials, you'll see my two parrots that I play with often, and you'll hear the antics that go along with that. So, yeah, if you want some entertainment, go look up the birds. I'm popping up this center panel with foam tape, and I did cut down the green and red stripe panel so that I will have a wide base, a wide border on my card base. And I am just gluing that straight down. I'm not using any foam tape on that. I feel like we've got more than enough dimension at this point. I just love a good border on a card. That is maybe my signature. It makes me happy. I think I learned it in graphic design a long time ago. It may not be the hip thing to do now, but it will always be near and dear in my heart. I am now adding crown jewels. It's the red one. I don't know the name of them. Please forgive me, Alex, for not knowing the names of everything. It's very hard to keep my brain straight with all the products that I've got floating around in the room. I'm very thankful for all of them, and I play with them daily. So, yeah, I love my Maker Forte, that's for sure. So, I am using my crafter's wand and my Barely Art Glue to put these down. And I think it turned out, like I said, cute as pie. It's not my favorite card. It's one of my favorite. Well, they're all my favorites. Everything I make usually makes me happy. I hope that when you create, you don't compare yourself to anybody else, and that whatever your art is makes you happy, and you're like me and you can't decide what your favorite is, because that's what it's all about. This is about having fun. This is about sharing your heart with somebody else. And, it might even be therapy, Sometimes crafting's therapy for me. It takes the stress of my life away. And I'm very thankful that I get to do it on most days. I am taking a white gel pen and I'm just adding details to my little critters because that makes the images pop. That's just a little design tip that you can adopt if you wish. So now we're moving on to the next card. This is the one with the snowfall. I stamped what I call the gingerbread, and I embossed that in white powder, and I am melting that with my heat gun per usual. Now, I wanted to think of a different way to color this because we're on black cardstock, and I didn't want just a black and white card. Now, I will tell you, it's stunning, and I would have been just fine okay with this, but I wanted to show you different techniques. So I am bringing in the new Tim Holtz Distress watercolor pencils. These are available at Maker Forte, and I am starting out with a brown. I don't know what colors I used. I am just grabbing them. I keep them kind of off to the side, and I am using my aqua brush. And the key is, because we're on regular cardstock, we're not on watercolor cardstock. Which reminds me, I do have black watercolor paper. I could have used that, but anyway, hindsight's 2020. So you need to use a very, very dry brush, just barely wet. Damp doesn't even count, just barely wet. And you're just going to move those colors. You're going to see I am scribbling down color. I'm not doing anything profound. I'm not doing anything that's professional. I am just scribbling. That's what I love about this medium. Also, with these watercolor pencils, they are highly pigmented and they kind of have a milky property to them. So they're not like an oxide, but they tend to show up on darker cardstocks. So that's why I chose to do it. Now, I don't particularly love the way the colors are showing up right now. So I hit this with a heat gun. Actually, my heated tool. I don't use the heat gun because I don't want to remelt the embossing. But once this is dry, first of all, the color kind of pops a little bit more. But I'm coming in with the white watercolor pencil, and I am coloring all of the parts that I'm going to color. That sounds redundant. I'm doing white because if you put white, so like if you're coloring on dark cardstock with colored pencils, you use your white pencil first and then you color on top of it, and then that makes those colors come to life. So that is what I am doing here with the Distress watercolor pencils. No, this is not a typical colored pencil. It is watercolor. But because this has that milky property, I'm able to do that. So now that everything is colored white, I am coming in with the brush and I'm dampening it just a little bit because I want it to be hazy so that when I put the color on top of it, then we're getting the primary color of our objects, if that makes sense. If I just scribbled the color right on top of it without setting it first, then you would just get a milky version of what you're trying to do. So here I'm drying it. Now it looks mainly white. And I forgot to color the door, so I'm coloring the door. I don't know what I was thinking, but it is what it is, right? And I use my water aqua brush and I wet that down. And then we're going to get into the coloring. I hope, fingers crossed. I'm coming in with the exact same colors that I used before, the browns. I'm coloring the door red. I think I've told you plenty of times that I think red really pops on cards. I can't speak. I'm losing my voice more so than usual. And the red is eye-catching. And also, if you take photographs of your cards, it really pops off the page. So always try to add a little bit of red to your cards. Try it, see if you like it. It's one of my go-to techniques. Yeah, I don't regret that at all. This is pretty cool looking now. I stamped Welcome Home onto a like 1/2 inch strip and I cut it down to fit and I popped that up on foam tape. Now we're coming with the Dachshund. I colored him with the E39, 37, 35, and 33. And then I'm using C7, 5, and 3 for the gray parts of his outfit. Per usual, I am coloring the red portions last because red always bleeds into the other colors. And even though we've got a colorless blender, it will never pick up the red all the way. It'll always kind of be there. So I do reds last. So I start with the R24, which is my lightest color. And I color in all of the stripes. And then I come in with the R29. I'm not going to use the 5.9 this time. It's too small of a space. And I'm not that worried about all the shading. So I am putting some R29 at the top of the dog and at the bottom of the dog so that we get an illusion that he's rounded. So if you leave the lightest color in the center, you get the illusion that he's a little wiener dog, which he is. And then from there, I am using, the R46, and I'm barely dabbing that in. Barely, because we have no room for that, really. You could absolutely leave this out. It's not a necessary color for this design. And then I come back in with the R24 just to blend everything out because it's my lightest color. And I do the tip of the hat and all that good stuff. So I'm also doing the presents. The presents I stick with just 2 colors. So that one in the middle there, I did gray and red. And then from there, I have to make decisions what colors I'm going to do my packages. So ultimately, since I have red already budding up to that package, I decided to color that with the R24, and then I also color that with the R29, just to provide shading. Again, I didn't want to work in all of that shading, and I did that very top one in red as well. Here's where I'm bringing in the R29 just to add a little bit of the shading and dimension into the box. Nothing special here. This is really simple Copic coloring at this point. And then I realized that I forgot to do that middle package. And that was a mistake on my part because I could very easily get that red. I could pull that into that package, but I was lucky I was able to color that with a C3 and a C5, and I did not pull it in, but I had to be super careful with the tips. I'm also bringing in my white gel pen, and I'm just adding little areas of highlights along his belly and his rump and on his snout, just to give some highlights and some suggestion that some light is bouncing around. And I always think that that adds character to our critters or to anything that we're coloring. I am now using the panel that we did the red and the silver. That's why I did the Dachshund and the grays and the blacks and the reds. I am popping him up on foam tape again because it sticks best to shiny, slippery surfaces. Glue would wiggle, and your like double-sided tape runners, a lot of times those won't hold up long term, but foam tape isn't going anywhere. So I just center that onto the panel, and look at that glitter, that shine, all that foiling goodness. Oh, all that glitter and all that gel mess and everything that I did in the beginning was so worth it. When I look at these cards, I am so glad that I decided to be adventurous and play with stuff that I normally don't play with. I always encourage people to just try all of the things, because why not? It's just paper, it's just ink, it's just glue. And if you don't like it, throw it in the garbage or cover it up with something else. I've got some last shots of my cards. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me during the Crafter Party Retreat. I love hanging out with you guys. You guys have been a blast this weekend. I hope that you enjoy the rest, and I can't wait to see what everybody else is doing. So until next time, keep crafting. Be blessed, my friends. Bye-bye.